masterclass of interviewing, editing, etc. Steve Kroft here with us. Steve, thanks so much for being here.
Nice to be here, John.
It is I know it's an hour, but what a remarkable just couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Right there.
Very interesting. I mean, and that really gives you, I think, a good idea of what he is like too. He's very, he's got a great sense of humor, and he knows how to play to the camera.
He certainly does. And what's interesting, watching him speak, he often, you can see him reaching for just the right way to put something. But in that moment, and again, kudos to the entire production team, watching him not speak, I found to be almost as interesting there. Yeah. It was, what do you suppose in those moments he might not have been saying, I suppose?
I don't know. That's a really interesting question, because he does sometimes there are a lot of 3-second pauses when you do an interview with him where he's searching for the right word. And I think he has to be incredibly careful and choose his words carefully. So I think he's always just weighing the words, How am I going to answer this?
It has seemed, when speaking about Donald Trump, he has certainly been reaching for the Rogers often, looking for the proper descriptives, I suppose. But you struck upon the idea of improvisation as a tool versus a policy.
Right.
Do you think it's his concern that the next 4 years are going to be by the seat of one's pants here?
I think so. I do believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I do think he really honestly believes that once Trump gets into the White House and he's surrounded by his team, and there are some very strong people on the team, adults, then I think he'll probably change. I think he'll still keep the improvisational tone, but I think he'll be more careful. I think the president believes that. And I think he also believes that, and he said it before and he said it again in this interview, that government's hard to move. It's like turning a big ship. It's not done quickly, and there are lots of checks and balances in the private sector and Congress, and it's not that easy to screw up.
They say of our line of work, we're writing the rough draft of history. But as it regards the president, in our line of work, you are perhaps as much an expert as anybody. You sat with him 2 years prior to his first term as president. I guess we're all looking for the idea of change or evolution. How have you seen him over this last decade?
I don't think he's changed that much. I think he's gotten older and grayer, and I think he's got some battle scars, but I think that he's still inside basically not changed at all. And he said that his friends think that he's the same person leaving that he was when he came in, and that he's proud of that, because the spotlight and being in the bubble and everything, you can become out of touch. And he talked about just cash. He says, he says, people in my office tell me, he said, they don't use cash that much anymore. He says, everything's just on a credit card. He says, I don't have to,
He's got to sit in traffic for the first time in Lord knows how long.
Right.
Again, you did this on Monday. That's fewer than 2 weeks before he will officially no longer be the 44th president.
He's anxious to leave.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. That was my question. Yeah. Is he ready for it to be over? In a resolute way, in terms of, I've done what I can do, or I don't want the enormity of this anymore, or both?
I think a combination of both, and also he is, he has to leave, so, and he knows that, and he's very much a realist. So I think he's been thinking about it for a long time. I think he's adjusted to it. I think that he and Michelle and the kids want to get out. It is, Harry Truman called it a beautiful prison. It is in some ways a prison. And I think he'll be happy to be out of there.
I know when people leave their jobs or retire, we make something of a legacy. And interesting that, as a president, your legacy is, there's also a pragmatic impact of what it is that you have done. How important do you think his legacy is to him personally?
I don't think it's that important, because it's not something he has any control over, and that's just the way he is. He said it's going to take 10 years to find out, because he may have a part of his legacy that things that we don't, that haven't happened yet, and because they started under his administration. So I think that he's philosophical about it. I just don't think that he has any control over it, and I think he feels like he's done a good job.
I do want to choose one, if only because it's got his name on it, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. When you look at it, it's interesting for all the gains that it has made. It has virtually eliminated the disparity between black and white children's covered with health care, which is by any measure a remarkable thing in this society. Contrary to what we might be hearing at headlines, more and more people are enrolling. So there is a disparity just in the idea of it. How do you think he feels about its both success and failure?
I think he feels that it's just, it's the first step. And I think that, the way legacies are written for presidents, I think he'll always get credit for having the first plan, regardless of what happens to it, or regardless what they end up calling it, regardless how it changed. I think that will always be part of his legacy, and I think he realizes that. And I think he also realizes and appreciates how difficult it's going to be to turn away from it.
We saw a clip last night on the evening news, and I was struck by this as well, that he believes when it came to elections, he was able to shape public opinion, but that he felt like he lost the PR battle while actually governing. Is there a regret for him there? How would you describe how he feels about that?
I think that was I think he was admitting to a miscalculation. He doesn't usually, and most presidents don't normally admit mistakes. But I think he wishes that things had been a little different. I think he also feels that he did not have a choice, that he tried and that he made his best efforts, and the political tone of the Republican Party and the sort of really hostile partisanship of both the Democrats and the Republicans made it impossible.
I know it
was their strategy.
I know you pointed out earlier today, 1 week from tonight, he won't be setting an alarm.
Right.
And he's ready. He's ready to sleep in, if nothing else.
Yep.
That's great. Can't wait for this, Steve. Thank you so much for being here again. It's going to be quite an hour of viewing on Sunday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And again, it is 60 Minutes presents Barack Obama, 8 years in the White House, Sunday night, 6 Central on CBS. And in case you do miss it, although Steve, I promise, I shan't. You can also watch it here on CBSN at 10 p.m. Eastern. Steve, thanks again.